Chip, it's been a bad weekend for you and those in your district. Our thoughts and our prayers are with all of you. Welcome to the program, Chip Roy.
Well, thanks, Glenn. Yeah, it's been a rough go for the folks down in Kerrville. I've spent most of the last 3 days there. I came home late yesterday to see my family clean up and get out of the way, because at some point, you want them to be able to kind of do their thing. But, look, it's also a great testimony to the, strength, resolve, compassion of not just the people of Kerrville, but across Texas and the whole country. There's like long waiting lines for people to volunteer. There was a backup, a long line of traffic at the place where people are signing up. Resources are flowing in. Musicians are scheduling benefit concerts. The local, state, and federal governments are all working in sync. A lot of prayer warriors out there. But man, it's tough. I mean, I drove out there through Camp Mystic and out through Hunt, which is, I think, arguably the most beautiful part of Texas. Certainly one of. And there's a reason there's 18 camps there. It's just an extraordinary part of the state. And, there's just a tight area there where if you get a flash flood like they got with that unprecedented amount of water coming through at that rate, it just comes through and it's just a torrent. And the damage is pretty extraordinary. When I saw houses wiped off foundations, trees laid flat, like massive, huge old cypress trees and oak trees just laid flat. A lot of damage to buildings, but everybody's out there cleaning up and getting after it, and we'll keep praying for them and working with them.
I know that the Guadalupe rose, 26 feet in 45 minutes. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to put in perspective. And I tweeted out a picture that we had of a time lapse of what happened out in Llano, and you could see it in literally, it was about a 4-minute span where the water just rose up. I don't know how many feet, but if you look at the video, it's extraordinary, just engulfing a bridge, filling up an entire river basin. And people were, responding to that tweet like, oh my gosh, how does that happen? This is what we deal with in Central Texas, generally with flash floods, because we have hard, dry ground. We have limestone with a very thin kind of layer of soil on top, right? And we've been in a drought, so it's particularly been pretty hard. And so, you get then a rain like we got, which is basically a tropical storm type event that just sat and spun in that one location. And that water is going to go somewhere when you're talking 12 to 14 inches of water. And so that's what happened. And it came down. And look, I've seen a lot of different theories on this and people going, oh, well, some people are saying it's, don't worry, this is not the first time this has happened. They should have been prepared. There was the flood in 1987. There's been floods before. True.
Yeah.
And they are ready for that sort of thing. But then how ready are you? Well, what you saw here was a level of water that went so fast and so furiously. And remember, between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., right? It was in that window of July 4th. So, they were prepared for flash flooding, but they were prepared for what you would call normal or even bad flash flooding, not the level that occurred. And that's what happened.
So Dana Bash was on CNN, and she was saying that, this is the federal government. They, the two Texas National Weather Service offices that were involved in forecasting and warning, they were missing some key staff members because of Donald Trump's cuts. However, the records show that they normally have 2 people that are in there, and because of the warnings that were coming out the night before, they had 5 people on duty. I mean, can you comment at all about the Trump cuts that have gotten more people killed now, or because of global warming?
Yeah, I mean, it's all just so absurd. First of all, take one step back. The finger pointing generally is just offensive when you're dealing with trying to find bodies and trying to deal with families grieving. Like night before last, I was with the families who have not been able to find their daughters or who are pretty, are learning the bad news about their daughters. So that's where I was night before last. I don't know where Dana Bash was, but she wasn't there. And we're down on the ground with first responders trying to find people. and we're trying to clean up debris, and we're trying to help a community heal, and we're trying to deal. You got a camp director who died trying to save little girls, and I'm there with his daughter, who is now there with the families of the people who lost their little girls at this camp, and she was there because she loves them. And you know how hard that was? And that you got these people like Dana Bash who are out there, you know, making this conjecture about budget cuts or the Trump administration didn't have people there, which, first of all, is false. It's just not true. And second of all, whatever we're going to do in analyzing all of this, do it in a week or two or in a month when we can sit back and take in all the facts. We used to be a country that would do that. And instead now it's all about this politicization and this, you know, recriminations and trying to exploit. We got media who are tracking down the family members right now. And when the families say, guys, we don't want to talk, they go dig up stuff on social media, put pictures up on their kids. Kids who were alive 72 hours ago aren't alive now, and they're grieving. So that's the kind of crap we're dealing with. And with all due respect to Dana, it's just not true, okay? And by the way, you know, whatever the National Weather Service was doing, do you and I both believe that there's probably bureaucracy at NOAA and in Commerce that could be made better? Yeah, I'm sure you and I believe that, and I know President Trump believes that. Should we improve it? Probably. But to say they weren't doing their job and they didn't have the resources there is a lie.
Well,
so that's what happens when you try to politicize it instead of pursue facts.
Let me just say this. There was a flash flood watch that was issued at 12:41 in the morning. Then a flash flood warning was at 1:14 a.m. Flash flood emergency was issued at 5:34 a.m. The problem is, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not getting my flash flood warnings at that time. This area doesn't have a great cell service, if cell service in some of these areas, so you're not getting any of those kinds of warnings. And the area had gone through, should we put up, you know, like air raid sirens, you know, tornado warning sirens, should we put those up? And the town decided not to do it. I mean, this is years ago.
Right.
I mean, I think it looks like everybody did what they were supposed to do. It happened in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and like if I look at this, and I haven't studied at all what decisions were made, you know, by Kerr County or by the state or anything else. And I know there was some stuff about a bill that was, you know, debated this last session and who voted for it, who didn't. None of that really matters. The question really is, or it doesn't matter at this moment. It will matter in the long run. The question for me is, you know, my gut and instinct is you need sirens. Right, that's my gut. That's my quick reaction. Is that you need sirens, right? People in Tornado Alley and they live up, you know, they have sirens. So in a place like this that has flash floods that occur every decade or two or five, and some can get bad, great. You're going to need sirens. You need a plan to get to high ground. That's my gut. But we'll talk to the locals and the state and the feds. But look, here's the thing that's kind of interesting to me. If you look through it all, say, okay, those warnings were put out. So what are the double-edged swords here? Sometimes we get flash flood alerts. I mean, you know this in Texas, even in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but certainly down here, we get them a lot. So you kind of pay attention even when you get it in the middle of the day. Like I pay attention enough as a dad to go, all right, you know, okay, make sure everything's good. But you get them a lot. And here's a problem. When you get like, well, we're going to get 2 to 4 inches of rain, or we're going to get 4 to 6 inches of rain. And you hear that, you go, okay, well, that's a lot of rain. Okay, but it sounds normal. The question here is, when National Weather Service, when the state government, those folks, our Texas Department of Emergency Management started moving resources there because their view of the tropical storm, combined with what they were getting from the National Weather Service, told them that, yeah, this is starting to get a little bit interesting. So some of that was happening. People were paying attention. People were preparing. But it was an extraordinary event. So a question can be asked, well, who knew it was an extraordinary event, and when did they know it? Did anybody?
But how are they going to get the information? Chip, how is anybody going to get the information to people, even if they did know it, at 3 o'clock in the morning without sirens?
That's right. That's, to me, that's my starting position. And then the question becomes, you know, before that, it's like, well, who knew what? My observation of all of this is the president, the federal government was doing what they normally do and more, and some, sent more people, were on top of it. They put out notices. And we'll have to go through and see, okay, there were different meteorologists who, from my observation here in Texas, we're all still observing this late in the night. There's a local guy in Austin who's pretty good, and he was tracking it. I was tracking it, Glenn, from D.C. You know why I was tracking it? Because I was trying to decide if I was going to go to Kerrville, where I go every year for the 4th of July for a big concert with my family. Then President Trump asked, and his team asked, if I would stay for the bill signing. And so we made a decision, okay, it looks like it's going to rain in Kerrville, but we didn't know it was going to be catastrophic. That's my point. I was following it, and it looked like it was going to be heavy rains, and then it got a lot worse late night, and then the warnings went out. But to your point, you got to have sirens. That's my observation.
Can you hang on just a second? I have to take a 1-minute break, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about the rescues that happened, because some real heroism happened. And then I also have to touch on the big, beautiful bill that you did sign, and we'll talk to you about that coming up in 60 seconds. First, here's a fun little experiment. Just Google your own name and see what pops up. My guess is probably more information than you're strictly comfortable with. Now, I want you to imagine what a cyber criminal could come up with if he searched your name on the dark web. What is he supposed to do with your name, your address, your social security number? Well, nothing good. I mean, he'll find all of those things, and this is why you should use LifeLock. They don't just tell your information and tell you that your information might have been compromised. They're actually constantly monitoring, alerting you to suspicious activity, and helping clean it up if your identity does get stolen and used against you. Because if you think freezing your credit or changing your password is enough, spoiler alert, it's really not. And neither is crossing your fingers and hoping that data doesn't end up in some dark web clearance bin. LifeLock makes it easy. It's their business to protect you, because the bad guys aren't slowing down. So you can't afford to either. Protect yourself with LifeLock. Join now, save up to 40% off your first year with the promo code BECK. Call 1-800-LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock, or head to LifeLock.com and use the promo code BECK and save 40%. 10 seconds, and we're back with Chip Roy. Big welcome to our newest affiliate and my new home in Buffalo. It's 1270 The Patriot. The Patriot. Welcome to the program. We're glad you're here. Chip Roy joins us again. There are some amazing stories of heroism that we'll be telling later in the show. Is it true that there are some that are just completely made up?
So I'm sure some of the things, yesterday there was a story about 2 girls being found in a tree or something down a little south of Kerrville, southeast, I should say, heading towards Comfort in Kendall County. And my antenna was up. I reached out to the sheriffs in both counties. Turned out not to be true. We try to get that information out as soon as possible. And it's tragic because, these families, they start getting their hope up. It's just a fake report, fake news. So we had to kill that. But there has been tremendous acts of heroism. The Coast Guard, that one individual was responsible for moving, some 200 people. There was a lot of work to get food and water to people and then get them, extracted. We had 850 kids in these camps that had to be removed from the area with the flooding and with roads that were knocked out. And then we had actual, rescues of several of the girls that were, in fact, this was now 2 days ago, in trees and downriver, and there were rescues made. And then there were lives saved by the actions of camp directors. There was a woman who lost her life, Jane, I can't remember her last name, but she's a wonderful woman by all accounts of the people of Kerrville. She lost her life saving some children the night of the floods. And then Dick Eastland, who was the owner and longtime camp director, he bought it in 1973 at Camp Mystic. Dick, and he was getting older, and his younger family, his kids were, in the family business. They run the camp. Mary Liz, someone I've been talking to a lot. That's his daughter-in-law. Dick died night before last trying to save little girls, and he devoted his life to the camp, and he died trying to save several girls there as the floods were coming in.
Can you just clear this one fact up because I can't find anything in any Houston report about the city official that's went on this rant about it was how it was just white kids and yada yada yada, all this crazy stuff. But she made the claim that this was a white only Christian camp, and I can't find a single story debunking that, and I find that really hard to believe. True or not, Chip?
Totally false. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we've got, this is a Christian camp that welcomes anybody and everybody. This is just the kind of hateful rhetoric that comes out of people that want to politicize everything, demean everything. Everything has to be woke. Everything has to be through this like DEI ideology that's destroying our country, that thankfully President Trump and others are fighting back against and undoing and taking out of the federal government, and we need to do more of it at the state and local government. It's just absurd. I mean, the fact is, these are really, really good people who are dedicated to the mission of advancing the kingdom of Christ, and doing so with these historic camps that have been multi-generational along a great and beautiful part of the rivers in Texas. I am hopeful that they will all rebuild and that they will all get back to operation.
Yeah.
Next year would be Camp Mystic's 100th anniversary. Like I said, there's been 4 and 5 generations of kids that have gone through those camps. And look, and people ask, like, how could you have these cabins and these things all right next to the water? You know what the answer is? Because it's right next to the water. Right?
Right.
Because that's where you want to be.
That's where you want to be. Okay, all right. Chip, I've only got about a minute left, and I have to ask you, why'd you change your vote on the big, beautiful bill?
Look, you push as hard as you can get, and every step along the way, we got really good changes to that bill. But for conservatives, we wouldn't even have touched Medicaid. We got $1 trillion in Medicaid reforms. But for conservatives, we wouldn't have got nearly as many savings. We got $1.6 trillion. All of those things were along the way. And at the last minute last week, I did not like what the Senate did to the bill. You and I talked about it. They did a lot of bad things to the bill. We got serious action out of the administration that I believe will return all or most of the teeth on the Green New Scam so that we can stop the future projects. We're working with them on executive orders and actions that I believe they'll be doing this week. We got a little distracted by the flooding, but I believe we'll get it done this week. We got real reforms. I think we need to go further, but I made the judgment that we went as far as we could go under the current circumstance to achieve what the president wanted to achieve. But we got to go much further. Okay, I am not here for more deficits, and I think this bill is good. But I think we need to do more work to get deficits going down on a second follow-up reconciliation package, appropriations and rescissions, and that was a part of the decision-making too. Their pledge and promise to work with us to do that.
Thank you so much, Chip Roy from the great state of Texas. God bless you. We'll talk again, my friend.
This is Glenn Beck.